Now I would like to introduce Big Old Boy. He's our sheriff of Modoc County. And we all, oh, I see a hike over there. I went up to him in Wairika and he had that head, and I went up and I gave him this, and oh, he wrote. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, please give a welcome to our sheriff, Mike Poindexter, now the host of the Constitutional Sheriff.
Doug, I'm going to learn you got to talk exactly right here. This will work. I would prefer that. I'll make sure I don't get it too close now. Can everybody hear me? I want to thank everyone here first and foremost for coming here. A lot of people from out of the area. Raise your hand if you're from out of the area. Look at that. Wow. Thank you very much. It's you folks out there that are going to make the difference. All we're doing is trying to make everybody aware of what's going on. And you probably ask yourself, well, what are the sheriffs? Why are they here? What do we have to do with them today? And it's interesting because I'm relatively new at this. I've not quite 2 years as a Modoc County Sheriff, and I went at the suggestion of a pretty smart guy, I think, anyway. I went to Josephine County, I can't even remember how long ago it was, and listened to Fred Kelly Grant, who's pretty sharp. I really had my eyes open when I left there. I was amazed. He talked about this coordination word that we're going to hear a lot about here probably today. And most people don't know what that is. You folks need to know. Because rural America is in danger. And rural America, the silent majority, has got to show some passion, just like Doug shows. Doug has a lot of passion. If we're going to make this thing right, we're going to have to take the bull by the horns, we're going to have to get off the sofas, and we're going to have to get out and continue to make this thing grow. Just the other day I was talking to the same person that sent me to Josephine County. And I realized, look, you know, Washington is this big, giant, immovable object. And it is. If I'm just standing there looking at it, or if the Modoc Independent Tea Party is standing there looking at it, and me, but the more people we get on board with this, the more little brush fires that we set, just like this little brush fire we're here for today. We continue to grow this, and all of a sudden that big immovable object in Washington doesn't look so big or immovable. So that's what we're doing. And why the sheriffs? Well, and it's amazing because I never really thought about it. I've been in law enforcement my whole life, or in the service. I never really thought about the sheriff being really the only constitutionally accountable, elected by the people, law enforcement entity in this country. And no matter what you do in public service, you have to remember who you work for. And that's all you folks. We work for you, we represent you, and the sheriffs are here because we realize that. Anything that comes our way in Modoc County that has the potential to affect our livelihood, our way of life, our social and economic heritage, and it's a word that you don't associate that often with things other than that, like the Native Americans here who provided this great facility for us today. But it's true. Modoc County has historically made its living from the land, generation after generation after generation. And we're being regulated right out of the business. Literally right out of the business. I'm going to talk just a little bit, and I'm going to kind of do things a little different. I'm going to say a little bit here, and then I'm going to pass the mic on, and I'll use one of these fine sheriffs who, look, folks, politics is a weird anomaly, I guess is what you want to call it. And I personally have made a vow, and I think I have some of my staff here that will attest to this. Politicians are, we can't make decisions based on what's politically correct. And it happens every day in this country. It's got to stop. These guys up here they're throwing politics, casting them aside, and taking a stand for what is right. And more and more and more and more people need to do that. You'll see a whole lot of, there's an election going on here, a primary coming up. Take it seriously. Vet the people who are running. We have Brian Daly here who's running for assembly for our district. Very important that we know, thank you for coming, Brian. We've got Les Baugh who's running for Senate. Les, I know you're here somewhere. You guys talk to these folks and they know, make sure they understand rural America and that they care about rural America. Otherwise, I said this before, we're going to be sent off to the big city somewhere in a high-rise where we have our own little slot and we don't have our guns and we don't have anything. That's what they're trying to do. And if we don't vet our people and get off, take the bull by the horns, like I said before, and fight for it, that's a real possibility. Can't have it. My children are all grown up. I don't worry about them. Like Karen said, I worry about my grandchildren. I guess she still worries about her children because they're not all grown up yet completely, but it sounds like they're close. But my grandkids, I've got 7 and 1 coming. In fact, that's what my wife is, folks, if anybody's wondering. Priorities are always the grandkids around my house. But I worry about it because I had a great life. I was fortunate enough to be able to raise my kids here where we had the liberties that we're supposed to have. And I just can't help but thinking if we don't fight for this, we're not going to have any place to go. And I think that's definitely an accurate statement. I'm going to go up on a little bit something different here. One of these meetings I went to, and I can't remember which one, but we're talking about the government, and we're talking about indigenous power versus surrogate power. Has anybody ever heard of the correlation between the two? Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson, the founders, the people that were smart enough to write our Constitution way back then, called that we have to understand the laws of our being. That all humans are created with unique characteristics. And that really, the main one is free will. We have the capacity to grow, evolve. We have the unique ability to make our own decisions. And the reality of that unique nature of humanity is self-evident. In plain words, common sense, we're different than the other inhabitants on this planet. We're different than this dirt-spitting worm. Because we have that free will and ability to manifest our thoughts. And then we have the ability to carry those thoughts on. Indigenous power. The other type of power is what the human beings, we delegate to someone else. The surrogate power. Two people go into business together, they've created a surrogate type power. And it works. Until one of the parties assumes the rights of the other. And then it becomes corrupt. The government is a surrogate power. The only power that it has is that which has been delegated to it by the individuals who created it. That would be the people. Surrogate government or surrogates can be effective only when they openly acknowledge the true source of power. which is the people. Nothing's more effective than a declaration of the sovereign rights held by those with indigenous power. It's exactly what the founders of our nation did in 1776. Surrogate power may, and I think will, probably, fight back, but it can never win. Remember that. Once indigenous power is clearly declared, because surrogate power, in reality, has no true power of its own. Sounds a little bit crazy, a little bit confusing. But the bottom line is, the founders created the Constitution, constitutional republic, not a democracy. They knew it was, that it was easy, way too easy, for the majority in a pure democracy to violate the natural rights of the individual. The only way to keep the government from usurping indigenous power is to structure it, and we've already heard this today, from the bottom up. It has flipped. Only the silent majority in this country can flip it back. So I commend all of you for being here and learn as much as you can about this and take it from here and tell someone else. And then we're having more and more of these across the state. We're trying to make each one grow so that everyone is better educated. Real quick, when I got back from Josephine County, because they talked about coordination, I go, man, I got to go back and make sure, we got to get that in MODOC. And, you know, wow, the last frontier here in MODOC, folks, we've had it for 15 years, thanks to some really smart people from our past. And I've learned about it. I've studied the 42-page comprehensive land use management plan. I'm studying it more and more all the time. Some really interesting information in there. Bottom line is, the state, federal government has to coordinate with the people anytime, and prior to initiating or prior to implementing whatever it is they're doing, they have to coordinate with the people as to how it's going to affect us. We have huge issues here. I'm going to pass the mic in a second, and I'll talk a little bit maybe in between each one if something comes up that I recognize we have a problem here that someone else has. And I think you're going to see by the time these gentlemen, these fine men up here that I'm proud to be standing with, you're going to see that we're not unique here, that this problem is everywhere, and we need to fix it.